15th August 1940. 90. RAF Fighter Command, HQ, Bentley Priory, Stanmore, England. On this morning, Luftwaffe briefing papers described RAF fighter strength as critically weakened. Luftflotte 5 intelligence estimated fewer than 300 British fighters remained serviceable. Interception probability was projected at below 40%. But the radar boards at Fighter Command tell another story. Chain home stations from Ventnor to Bulmer showing dense German approach vectors. Convoy manifests still moving along the channel, and aircraft factory ledgers from Castle Bromwich recording 138 Spitfires delivered in July alone. Expectation, a final blow to a collapsing air defence. Documented reality. By midnight, the Luftwaffe logged 75 aircraft lost. The RAF 34. In the northern sector alone, 60 German aircraft fell or crash-landed. From declassified Air Ministry records, this day marked the first undeniable reversal. A moment when the amateurs survived, and the invaders were forced to reassess the sky above Britain. 10th of July 1940, Reichsluftfahrt Ministerium, Berlin, Germany. The morning staff conference opened with meteorological reports. Low cloud cover persisting over the channel, visibility poor at coastal observation posts. General Feldmarschall Albert Kesselring reviewed intelligence summaries compiled since the fall of France 3 weeks prior. The assessment, documented in file GL Int 47, estimated RAF Fighter Command strength at no more than 400 serviceable aircraft degraded by continuous combat and evacuation losses at Dunkirk. German fighter production for May recorded 527 Bf-109E aircraft delivered to operational units. Bomber strength stood at approximately 1,200 medium and dive bombers. The arithmetic appeared decisive. Kesselring made a handwritten note in the margin of the intelligence brief, preserved in post-war archives. If their reserves exceed 300 fighters, estimates collapse. The note went unsigned by other staff officers. No one challenged the assessment. Hermann Göring, Reichsmarschall and commander of the Luftwaffe, set the operational timeline, 4 weeks to destroy RAF Fighter Command. Invasion preparations depended on air superiority. The Channel crossing could not proceed under contested skies. Across the North Sea, Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding sat in his office at Bentley Priory reviewing very different numbers. RAF operational records for early July listed 640 fighters serviceable. Supermarine, Spitfire, MKA, and Hawker Hurricane. MKA, aircraft distributed across southern and Midland sectors. Dowding's memorandum to the Air Ministry, dated 8th of July, stressed the importance of centralized control and early warning through the chain home radar network. He wrote, "Information is our ammunition. Without it, numerical superiority means nothing." The German plan assumed attrition would favor the attacker. Luftwaffe doctrine emphasized concentrated force, overwhelming local defenses before rotating units to rest. British doctrine, still evolving under pressure, relied on dispersal, rapid interception guided by radar plots, and preservation of pilot strength. The contrast would define the coming weeks. Leading aircraft woman Joan Pearson, aged 21, worked the plotting tables at RAF Uxbridge 11 Group headquarters, her role translating radar reports and observer corps sightings into track markers on the operations room map. She wrote in her diary on 11th July. "We watch the board, small wooden blocks with numbers. Each one is men and machines. We move them quietly. The room is underground, no windows. The air smells of floor polish and cigarette smoke." The Luftwaffe staff in Berlin finalized deployment orders. Luftflotte 2 under Kesselring would strike from occupied France and Belgium. Luftflotte 3 under General Feldmarschall Hugo Sperler would operate from Normandy and Brittany. Luftflotte 5, based in Norway and Denmark, remained in reserve for northern strikes. Operational intelligence estimated minimal RAF strength north of Yorkshire. That assumption, entered into planning documents without verification, would prove costly. By mid-July, German reconnaissance flights increased over southern England. Bf 109E-3 fighters escorted high-altitude photo missions, returning with images of airfields, coastal defences and radar masts. Luftwaffe intelligence officers noted the tall lattice structures along the coast, but misidentified them as civilian radio towers. The function of chain home remained unclear to German planners. One intelligence summary dated 16th of July described the masts as likely related to naval communications or weather monitoring. The error was not corrected. RAF production figures for June and July contradicted German estimates. Castle Bromwich Aircraft Factory delivered 138 Spitfire MK aircraft in July alone. Hawker's Kingston facility produced 145 Hurricane MKE fighters in the same period. Total British fighter production reached 496 aircraft in July, offsetting losses and building reserve strength. Lord Beaverbrook, Minister of Aircraft Production, pressed factory managers for higher output. His directive, circulated on 14th of July, read, "Every aircraft completed is a shield. Speed is survival." The statistical gap between German assumptions and British reality widened through July. Luftwaffe intelligence continued to estimate RAF fighter strength at 300 to 400 aircraft. Actual strength exceeded 600 and was rising. The margin of error, small at first, would compound as combat intensified. Kesselring's marginal note proved prescient. If British reserves held above projection, German timeline projections would fail. 24th of July 1940, RAF Bordsea Radar Station, Suffolk, England. The morning shift began at 06 Arosa. Arnold Wilkins, senior engineer at the Chain Home Development Site, reviewed calibration logs from the previous night. The station's four 360-foot transmitter masts stood against low coastal cloud. Receiver arrays tracked incoming signals, converting radio echoes into range and bearing plots. Wilkins noted in his technical diary, "Interference from atmospheric conditions remains problematic. Operators learning to distinguish weather scatter from genuine contacts." 51 chain home stations now operated along the British coast, from Land's End to the Shetland Islands. Detection range varied by altitude and weather, 30 miles for low-flying aircraft, 60 miles for formations above 5,000 feet. Each station fed data to fighter command filter rooms, where plotters like Joan Pearson converted signals into actionable tracks. The system provided 20 to 30 minutes of warning, enough time to scramble fighters and position them for interception. Aircraft woman First Class Irene Lacey, age 19, operated the cathode ray display at Bordsea. She described her work in a letter to her sister dated 26 July. "The screens glow green in the darkroom. We watch for the spikes that mean aircraft, the hum of the valves, the smell of hot dust and salt air through the ventilation. My eyes ache by the end of the shift, but every mark we see could save lives." German reconnaissance continued. Luftwaffe photo interpreters examined images of coastal radar stations, but failed to grasp their strategic significance. One analysis report, declassified decades later, concluded, "Structures appeared to be fixed wireless installations for civilian or naval use. No evidence of fire control or early warning capability. The assessment reflected a doctrinal blind spot. German air defense relied on visual observation and sound detection. Radar existed in German military research but had not yet been integrated into operational air defense networks." RAF Dowding understood the value of the chain home system. His memo to sector commanders on 22nd July emphasized, "Radar gives us time to climb, time to position, time to choose our engagements. The enemy has numbers, we have knowledge." The philosophy shaped fighter command tactics. Avoid standing patrols, conserve fuel, intercept only when guided by radar and observer corps reports. Bristol Blenheim. If night fighters conducted trials at RAF Tangmere during late July. Equipped with primitive airborne radar sets, the twin-engine fighters attempted interceptions of simulated targets after dark. Results were mixed. Detection range remained short, often under 2 miles. Pilots reported difficulty distinguishing targets against ground clutter. The technology required refinement. For now, night defense relied on searchlights, anti-aircraft guns, and luck. Chain home operators worked 8-hour shifts, rotating through day and night cycles. Conditions inside the receiver huts were cramped and warm. Ventilation was poor. Women comprised the majority of radar operators, WAFs drawn from various backgrounds. Many had little technical training before assignment. They learned on the job, guided by engineers like Wilkins and senior operators. Accuracy improved with experience. By late July, station logs recorded fewer false contacts and faster reporting times. The Royal Observer Corps complemented radar coverage. Thousands of civilian volunteers manned observation posts across Britain, watching the sky with binoculars and reporting aircraft movements by telephone. Their reports filled gaps in low-altitude radar coverage and provided visual confirmation of track identity, friendly or hostile. Post 63 in Kent logged 147 sightings in the week of 20-26 July. Each report was timed, described, and forwarded to sector operations rooms. Luftwaffe planning documents from late July reflected growing urgency. Convoy attacks along the Channel intensified. German bombers and fighters engaged RAF patrols daily. Attrition mounted on both sides, but the expected collapse of RAF resistance did not materialize. Jagdgeschwader 51 War Diary, maintained by Staff Officer Oberleutnant Hans von Hahn, noted on 28th July, "British fighters continue to appear in strength. Interception response faster than anticipated." Weather across southern England remained variable through late July. Coastal fog and low cloud restricted visibility on several days, delaying German operations. RAF squadrons used the breaks to rest and refit. Ground crews worked through the nights, repairing damaged aircraft and replenishing ammunition. Fuel bowsers made continuous runs between storage depots and dispersal points. The tempo was unsustainable, but it held. 1st of August 1940, English Channel and RAF Biggin Hill sector, Kent. The weather cleared. Temperature at Dover reached 18 degrees Celsius by midday. Visibility extended across the Channel. German formations crossed in strength, targeting convoys and coastal installations. RAF 11 Group logged 47 scramble orders between 8 Möhlers and 18 Röhlern. Radio traffic increased sharply. Sector controllers vectored squadrons toward incoming raids, relying on continuous radar updates. Pilot officer Eric Locke, age 20, flew with 41 Squadron from RAF Hornchurch. His logbook entry for 1st of August recorded 2 sorties and 1 engagement. Locke wrote, "Climbed hard over Manston, sight of formations ahead, dark shapes against haze, engine heat through the canopy, breath tight, taste of fuel in the air." He claimed no victories that day. The encounter lasted seconds. Bf 109E4 fighters from Jagdgeschwader 51 turned into the attack, forcing the Spitfires to break formation. Oberst Werner Mulders commanded the 3-Grupper of JG 51. His unit operated from airfields near Calais. flying multiple sorties daily. Mulder's combat reports, preserved in Luftwaffe archives, described RAF resistance as determined and well coordinated. He noted the speed with which British fighters appeared after German formations crossed the coast. The warning time suggested effective early detection. Mulders recorded his assessment. Enemy command and control superior to expectations. Luftwaffe sortie counts for 1 August exceeded 1,000. RAF fighter command flew approximately 700 sorties in response. The disparity reflected German numerical advantage, but also the strain on British pilot and aircraft availability. Squadrons rotated through forward bases, flying 2 or 3 missions per day. Pilots returned exhausted. Ground crews worked without pause. Fuel and ammunition consumption outpaced delivery schedules at several airfields. RAF combat reports for 1st August listed 13 German aircraft destroyed or damaged, with 5 British fighters lost. The exchange rate favoured the defenders, but the margin was narrow. Attrition on both sides remained sustainable. Barely. Each loss represented trained pilots and irreplaceable aircraft. Replacement pilots arrived with minimal operational hours. Veteran squadron leaders noted the decline in experience levels. Locke's diary entry for the evening of 1st August continued. Eyes burn, ears ring from engine noise and radio chatter. Hands tremble when I write. Hamlin says it will pass. Not sure I believe him. Sergeant pilot Ronald Hamlin, Locke's squadron mate, had flown through the Battle of France. He understood fatigue. His own hands shook when he cleaned his Hurricane's guns at dusk. Convoy Peewit continued eastward through the Strait of Dover, escorted by destroyers and covered by RAF fighters. German bombers attacked twice during daylight hours. Bombs fell wide. No ships were hit. The convoy reached its destination after dark. Merchant sailors watched Spitfires circling overhead and felt a momentary reprieve. They knew the attacks would resume the next day. Luftwaffe intelligence summaries for early August maintained the assessment of declining RAF strength. Oberkommando der Luftwaffe staff officers projected fighter command would reach critical weakness within 2 weeks. The projection assumed continued attrition without corresponding British reinforcement. But British factories were delivering aircraft faster than Germany anticipated. The intelligence gap persisted. Biggin Hill sector operations room logged every raid, every scramble, every interception through the day. WAF plotters moved track markers across the map table. Sector controllers issued vectors by radio telephone. The system functioned under pressure. Delays remained minimal. Accuracy held. The centralized command structure allowed rapid reallocation of squadrons between sectors. Park, commanding 11 Group, shifted forces to meet threats, avoiding standing patrols that wasted fuel and pilot endurance. Fighter Command operational records for 1st August noted raid intensity increasing, pilot fatigue becoming factor, serviceability rates holding at 70%, replacement aircraft arriving from maintenance units. The tone remained factual, no alarm, but the underlying message was clear. The tempo could not increase further without breaking the system. German losses for 1st August included 1 Staffelkapitän killed over the Channel. His Bf 109E4 crashed into the sea after combat with Spitfires from 610 Squadron. The body was not recovered. Luftwaffe casualty records listed him as missing. His unit held a brief memorial the following morning, then the missions resumed. 4th August 1940, Castle Bromwich Aircraft Factory, near Birmingham, England. The factory operated on extended shifts. Workers arrived before dawn. Production lines ran continuously. Timesheets for early August showed 12-hour days, 6 days per week. Overtime pay was standard. Absenteeism remained low. Despite the grueling pace, workers understood the urgency. Elsie Crozier, aged 27, worked as a riveter on Spitfire fuselage assemblies. She lived in a nearby boarding house with 3 other factory women. Her letter home, dated 5th August, described the work. Hands burn by the end of the shift, rivets and metal dust, the noise of hammers and pneumatic guns. We work until our hands ache. For the boys we'll never meet, for boys who might live because we didn't stop. Castle Bromwich delivered 300 Spitfire Mku aircraft by early August. The pace represented a dramatic improvement over early production difficulties. Lord Beaverbrook had intervened personally in May, replacing management and streamlining workflows. The factory now produced nearly 5 Spitfires per day. Each aircraft required approximately 15,000 individual parts. Quality inspectors checked structural integrity and engine performance before acceptance. British aircraft production for July totaled 1,875 units across all types. German production reached 2,202 units in the same period. The disparity reflected Germany's larger industrial base and multi-year rearmament program, but British production focused heavily on single-engine fighters, the critical bottleneck in air defence. Germany's output included significant numbers of bombers and transport aircraft, diluting fighter strength. Rolls-Royce Merlin III engines powered most Spitfire Mk1 aircraft. Engine production ran parallel to airframe assembly. Rolls-Royce facilities at Derby and Crewe operated at full capacity. Metallurgical inspection reports from early August noted occasional stress fractures in crankshafts produced under accelerated schedules. Engineers implemented additional quality checks. Rejection rates increased slightly, but catastrophic failures declined. Factory ambient conditions were harsh. Summer heat combined with machinery generated temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius inside assembly halls. Ventilation systems struggled. Workers drank water frequently. First aid stations treated heat exhaustion and minor injuries. Despite the conditions, productivity climbed. Workers took pride in their output. Each completed aircraft represented survival for pilots they would never know. Sir Miles Thomas, managing director of Castle Bromwich, walked the production floor daily. He recorded observations in a notebook later donated to the Imperial War Museum. Entry for 6th August. Morale remains high despite physical toll. Workers understand their contribution. No speech is necessary. The work speaks for itself. Luftwaffe intelligence continued to underestimate British industrial capacity. German projections assumed British factories operated at pre-war efficiency levels, hampered by labour shortages and material constraints. The reality contradicted these assumptions. Britain's concentrated focus on fighter production, combined with improved factory management and worker commitment, sustained output at levels Germany deemed impossible. RAF maintenance units received the Castle Bromwich aircraft and prepared them for operational service. Radios were installed and calibrated. Guns were harmonized to converge at 250 yards. Pilots conducted acceptance flights, checking handling and engine performance. The aircraft then joined squadrons, replacing losses and building reserve strength. Elsie Crozier returned to her boarding house after the late shift on 6th August. She wrote another paragraph in her ongoing letter. They say the fighting is fierce. We hear the wireless reports. Sometimes at night, we see searchlights in the distance when German bombers pass. We know our work matters. That keeps us going. Production ledgers for August showed steady acceleration. Castle Bromwich aimed for 150 Spitfires by month's end. Hawker continued Hurricane production at Kingston and Langley. Supermarines at Southampton factory contributed additional Spitfires. The combined output would exceed 500 fighters in August. enough to offset losses and grow overall strength. Materials shortages occasionally disrupted schedules. Aluminum alloy deliveries ran behind demand. Steel forgings for undercarriage components arrived late. Factory managers improvised, pulling parts from storage reserves and expediting transport from suppliers. The Ministry of Aircraft Production coordinated logistics, prioritizing fighter production over other programs. The human cost of industrial acceleration remained invisible to most observers. Factory workers endured long hours, physical exhaustion, and constant pressure. Some collapsed from fatigue, others persisted through injuries. The statistical output, aircraft per month, masked the effort behind each number, but the workers understood. Every Spitfire carried their labour into combat. 11th August 1940, RAF Tangmere, West Sussex. High temperature and clear skies. The airfield lay exposed under summer sun. Ground crews worked in shirt sleeves, refuelling and rearming Hurricanes between sorties. Tangmere operations record book noted high operational tempo, crews exhausted. Sergeant Pilot Ronald Hamlin cleaned his Hurricane's 8 Browning 303 machine guns personally, checking each feed mechanism for fouling. Tangmere housed multiple squadrons, including 43 Squadron flying Hurricane Mk1 aircraft. The airfield came under attack twice during the day. Ju ATS Stuka dive bombers from STG-2, Immelmann, struck hangars and dispersal areas. 6 Hurricanes were destroyed on the ground, 3 more sustained. Damage requiring extensive repair. Anti-aircraft guns engaged, but scored no confirmed hits. The raids lasted minutes. The damage lasted days. WAF driver Nora O'Neill, aged 22, transported ammunition from storage bunkers to aircraft dispersals. Her vehicle, a requisitioned civilian truck, made continuous trips through the morning and afternoon. Tire wear from repeated journeys over rough taxiways became noticeable. O'Neill's supervisor noted in the motor transport log, "Vehicle 14 requires tire replacement. None available. Will continue operation until failure." Luftwaffe dive bomber tactics emphasized precision strikes on airfield infrastructure. German intelligence identified Tangmere as a critical sector station. Neutralizing it would create a gap in 11 groups' defensive coverage. The attacks reflected this strategic calculation. Runways were cratered. Fuel bowsers were damaged. Repair crews worked through the night filling holes and restoring services. Hamlin recorded his experience in a personal diary entry for 11th August. Throat dry from breathing oxygen. Gloves slick with sweat. The stick vibrates in my hands. I see them coming. Black shapes against the sky. Then the tracers. Then nothing but noise and motion. His Hurricane sustained minor damage during an afternoon sortie. Cannon shell fragments punctured the wing fabric. He landed safely. Ground crew patched the damage with fabric and dope. The aircraft flew again the next morning. RAF Fighter Command, operational summary for 11th August, listed 38 German aircraft destroyed or damaged against 32 British fighters lost. The exchange rate tilted slightly in Germany's favour. More concerning was the damage to airfield infrastructure. Tangmere's serviceability declined. Squadrons operated from temporary dispersals, while repairs continued. Royal Observer Corps Post 63 reported 41 aircraft sightings over Kent between 10 and 16 on 11th of August. Observers distinguished between friendly and hostile aircraft by silhouette and formation patterns. Their reports fed into the fighter command filter room, supplementing radar tracks. The system remained effective despite mounting pressure. Pilot fatigue emerged as a measurable factor. Squadron medical officers noted declining reaction times and increasing minor errors. Pilots fell asleep during briefings. Some vomited from stress before missions. Flight commanders rotated pilots off operations for rest when possible, but replacement pilots arrived with insufficient training. The choice was between exhausted veterans and inexperienced newcomers. Fuel supplies at Tangmere ran low by late afternoon on 11th August. Bowser crews expedited deliveries from regional depots. The logistics network strained under continuous demand. Every sortie consumed fuel faster than resupply could match. Sector controllers monitored fuel states constantly, adjusting scramble priorities to preserve reserve capacity. German planning documents from mid-August reflected Göring's directive to intensify attacks on RAF airfields. Operational orders emphasized destroying fighter command on the ground. Luftwaffe commanders believed airfield destruction would force British fighters to operate from inadequate forward bases, degrading effectiveness. Tangmere ground crew worked through the night of 11 to 12 August. They filled bomb craters using compacted rubble and earth. They rigged temporary lighting for dispersal areas. They salvaged parts from destroyed aircraft to repair damaged ones. By dawn, the airfield was operational again, though diminished. Hamlin's diary continued. We joke to stay sane. Gallows humour. But underneath, we're afraid. Not of dying, of failing, of the responsibility. Every sortie matters. Every mistake could cost lives. He flew 3 sorties on 12th August. His Hurricane's engine began running rough during the final mission. He nursed it back to Tangmere and landed with failing oil pressure. The engine required replacement. Luftwaffe intelligence assessments dated 12th August projected RAF fighter command nearing collapse within 1 week. Oberkommando der Luftwaffe staff officers reviewed sortie counts, loss estimates, and airfield damage reports. The conclusion appeared logical. Sustained pressure would break British resistance. The assessment ignored British production rates and pilot determination. 15th of August 1940, northeast England. Weather cleared after morning fog. Visibility exceeded 20 miles over the North Sea. Luftflotte 5 launched from bases in Norway and Denmark. The force included approximately 140 aircraft. Heinkel He 108H-3 bombers and Junkers Ju-88A-1 fast bombers, escorted by Bf-110C twin-engine fighters, target airfields and industrial sites in northern England and Scotland. Expected opposition minimal, based on intelligence projections of concentrated RAF strength in the south. The projection was wrong. RAF 13 Group, covering northern England and Scotland, maintained full operational strength. Chain-home radar stations at Otterkops Moss and Danby Beacon detected the German formations over 60 miles out. Sector controllers scrambled multiple squadrons. Spitfires from 72 Squadron climbed from Acklington. Hurricanes from 79 Squadron launched from Acklington and Catterick. The defences were ready. Sergeant Frank Howell, aged 24, flew Spitfire MKE serial number K9953 with 72 Squadron. His combat report, filed later that day, described the engagement. Multiple contacts at 15,000 feet, closed to 300 yards, opened fire on lead bomber, observed hits on port engine, oil streaks across my canopy, smell of cordite heavy in cockpit, broke away as return fire struck my port wing. Luftflotte 5 encountered fierce resistance. RAF fighters attacked in coordinated waves. German bomber formations broke apart under pressure. The Bf-110C escorts, designed for long-range operations, proved vulnerable in turning combat against single-engine fighters. Several fell to Spitfires in the first minutes of engagement. Oberstleutnant Kurt Fischer commanded one of the He 111 bomber groups. His aircraft sustained damage over Northumberland. Hydraulics failed. The bomb load was jettisoned early. Fischer turned for Norway, losing altitude. Radio logs from his unit recorded distress calls. Several aircraft reported critical damage. The return flight across the North Sea became an ordeal. Some aircraft ditched. Others crash-landed in Norway. Casualty lists grew through the afternoon. German losses in the northern sector reached between 30 and 60 aircraft, depending on accounting methods. Some damaged aircraft reached bases but were written off as total losses. Crew casualties exceeded 100 killed, wounded, or missing. RAF losses in the northern engagement totaled 8 fighters. The disparity shocked German commanders. Simultaneously, attacks in southern England proceeded as planned. Luftflotte 2 and 3 struck airfields across Kent, Sussex, and Hampshire. German sortie counts for 15th August exceeded 2,000 hulls, the highest single-day total of the campaign. RAF Fighter Command flew over 1,000 sorties in response. Combat spread across southern and eastern England. Total German losses for 15th August reached 75 aircraft confirmed destroyed. RAF lost 34 fighters. The exchange rate dramatically favoured Britain. More significantly, the northern attack exposed a fundamental intelligence failure. Luftwaffe planning assumed weak northern defences. Reality demonstrated otherwise. Howell landed at Acklington with damage to his port wing and tail. Ground crew counted 14 bullet holes. The aircraft was repairable. Howell described his physical state in a letter to his parents, dated 17th August. Hands would not stop shaking for an hour after landing, legs weak, climbing from cockpit. The fear comes after, not during. During, there's only action. German radio intercepts, decoded by British intelligence, revealed the shock among Luftflotte 5 crews. One transmission, logged at 16:30, reported, "Resistance heavier than anticipated, losses severe, request reassessment of enemy strength estimates." The message was repeated with variations throughout the evening. Luftwaffe casualty reports for 15th August listed aircrew losses by name and rank. Among them, Unteroffizier Karl Heinemann, aged 23, Ju-88 radio operator, killed when his aircraft exploded over the North Sea. His personal effects, returned to his family weeks later, included a letter begun but never completed. The final line read, "We believed we would be home sooner." RAF intelligence officers compiled their own assessments. Air Ministry summaries noted the lopsided exchange ratios and the failure of German intelligence to accurately estimate British defensive strength, the report concluded. Enemy expectations demonstrably incorrect. Our defensive system remains intact. Weather deteriorated overnight. Fog rolled in from the North Sea. Operations slowed. Crews on both sides slept, repaired aircraft, and prepared for the next day. But 15th August had shifted calculations. The Luftwaffe could not sustain such losses. Operational planning would require revision. Evening, 15th August 1940, Carinhall, Germany. Hermann Göring received casualty reports through the late afternoon and evening. The numbers did not match projections. Oberkommando der Luftwaffe, staff officers gathered for emergency assessment. The mood was tense. Generaloberst Hans-Jürgen Stumpf, commanding Luftflotte 5, transmitted his preliminary report by secure line. The losses were undeniable. OKL communique issued at 21 Frauls labelled the day's losses as a quote, "unexpected but operationally acceptable." The phrasing masked concern. Internal memoranda, declassified decades later, showed divisions among senior officers. One staff officer wrote in the margin of the casualty summary, "Enemy endurance underestimated. Revision of timeline necessary." Göring ordered immediate retasking. Future operations would concentrate on RAF airfields and aircraft factories. Luftflotte 5 would not repeat mass daylight operations over northern Britain. The northern route was effectively closed. Resources would redirect to southern sectors, where escort fighter coverage was feasible. The Bf-110C, Germany's long-range escort fighter, had failed its primary mission. The twin-engine aircraft lacked agility against Spitfires and Hurricanes. Losses among 110 units were disproportionately high. German fighter doctrine required adjustment. Single-engine Bf-109E fighters would provide close escort, but their limited range constrained operational depth. British intelligence intercepted and decoded German communications through Ultra. The intercepts revealed operational reassessments and shifting priorities. Air Ministry analysts noted Göring's frustration in coded messages. The German High Command faced a dilemma. Continue attrition warfare against an enemy proving more resilient than anticipated, or shift strategy toward terror bombing of cities. UF's Karl Heinemann's final letter, found among his effects and forwarded to his widow, offered a ground-level perspective. Dated 16th August but written before his final mission, it read, "We believed we would be home sooner. The English fight harder than we were told. I think of you and the children. I do my duty." The letter was unfinished. He died before completing it. Luftwaffe loss reports for 15th August, itemized, destroyed and damaged aircraft by type. He won 11, 22 destroyed. Ju 88, 15 destroyed. Bf 110, 11 destroyed. Bf 109, 27 destroyed. Damaged aircraft requiring major repair, 48. Total aircrew casualties approached 280 killed, wounded or missing. The statistical impact was immediate. Replacement crews and aircraft would take weeks to integrate. RAF summaries adopted a different tone. Fighter Command Operational Report for 15th August noted heavy enemy activity throughout day, all sectors engaged. Our losses acceptable, enemy losses significant. Defensive system proved effective under maximum pressure. The restrained language reflected institutional culture, but the underlying satisfaction was evident. Göring's retasking orders reached Luftflotte commanders by midnight. New operational priorities: destroy RAF sector stations, disrupt command and control, target aircraft production facilities. The intelligence assessment driving these orders remained flawed, but the operational shift was real. The Battle of Britain entered a new phase. German aircrew morale, previously high, showed signs of strain. Post-mission debriefings recorded concerns about RAF strength and defensive coordination. Pilots and navigators questioned pre-operation intelligence briefings. The gap between briefed expectations and encountered reality eroded confidence. British defences, conversely, gained confidence from the day's results. Dowding's system had functioned under maximum stress. Radar provided early warning. Sector controllers vectored squadrons effectively. Pilots engaged and disengaged according to tactical doctrine. The integration of technology, organisation, and human execution had held. German planning documents from 16th August onward showed recalibration. Sortie numbers would remain high, but tactical approach would shift. Airfield attacks would intensify. Bomber formations would fly with increased fighter escort. Daylight operations would avoid routes beyond effective fighter range. The human cost extended beyond casualty statistics. Surviving German aircrews carried the memory of watching comrades' aircraft fall into the sea. RAF pilots, despite victory, faced mounting exhaustion. Both sides approached the limits of sustainable operations, but the balance had shifted. The invaders had lost the initiative. 20th of August 1940, RAF Debden and House of Commons, London. Churchill addressed Parliament in the afternoon. His speech, recorded by BBC and later published, included the line, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." The phrase entered history, but at RAF Debden, the few were too exhausted to listen. Flight Lieutenant Adolf Seyss, sailor, Milan, commanding 616 Squadron's AE flight, briefed his pilots in the dispersal hut. His notes, preserved in squadron records, emphasized discipline and conservation of ammunition. Milan wrote, "Do not fire unless certain of target. Ammunition is limited. Every round must count. Brake cleanly. Do not pursue damaged aircraft into concentrated flak." Pilot rosters for 20 August showed average sortie rates of 3 to 5 missions per pilot per day. Some flew 6. Medical officers noted increasing fatigue symptoms, slowed reactions, irritability, difficulty sleeping. Squadron commanders rotated pilots off operations when possible, but replacement rates lagged behind casualties. Ground crew at Debden worked through darkness. They refueled, rearmed, and repaired aircraft between sorties. Merlin engines required servicing every 25 flight hours. Airframe inspections checked for combat, damage and stress fractures. Exhaustion affected ground crew as it did pilots. One mechanic's diary entry, dated 23rd August, read, "Hands tremble, tightening cowling bolts. Dropped wrench twice, must focus. Pilot depends on this work. Barrage balloon deployment increased around key installations. Balloon logs from London's defence zones recorded 450 balloons operational by 20 August. Steel cables suspended beneath the balloons forced German bombers to fly higher, degrading accuracy. The balloons were crewed by RAF Balloon Command, mostly women. They winched balloons up at dusk and down at dawn. Luftwaffe operations continued despite 15 August losses. German doctrine emphasized maintaining pressure. Raids targeted coastal convoys, airfields, and radar stations. Sortie numbers remained above 1,000 daily. RAF Fighter Command responded to each incursion, scrambling squadrons and engaging over southern counties. Churchill's speech acknowledged the air battle's importance to national survival. The political dimension reinforced what pilots already understood. Failure was not survivable. Invasion remained imminent if air superiority shifted to Germany. The stakes justified the exhaustion. Milan's briefing notes also emphasized morale. He recorded, "Men are tired, some beyond tired, but discipline holds, purpose clear, we defend, they must fail." His leadership style combined technical precision with quiet empathy. Pilots respected him for both. RAF operational logs of 20 August noted continued serviceability concerns. Average aircraft availability per squadron held at approximately 70%. Maintenance backlogs grew. Some squadrons operated with fewer than 10 serviceable aircraft. Reserve aircraft from maintenance units filled gaps, but the margin was thin. German night bombing operations increased through late August. Luftwaffe bomber units shifted to nocturnal missions, reducing vulnerability to fighter command. British night defences remained inadequate. Anti-aircraft guns fired blind. Night fighters achieved limited success. The Blitz was beginning, though the term would not be used for weeks. Pilot rotation policies attempted to balance fatigue and experience. Squadrons withdrawn from forward bases moved to quieter sectors for rest. Replacement pilots trained at operational training units joined frontline squadrons. The learning curve was steep. Some replacement pilots died on their first or second missions. RAF supply chains sustained operations despite strain. Fuel, ammunition, and spare parts reached airfields daily. Transport infrastructure held. Logistics officers coordinated deliveries, prioritizing combat units. The system flexed, but did not break. German intelligence summaries from late August acknowledged persistent RAF resistance but projected imminent collapse. The projection reflected wishful analysis more than objective assessment. Luftwaffe commanders needed results to justify continued operations. The data did not support their conclusions, but operational orders proceeded regardless. By month's end, the campaign's character had evolved. What began as a planned destruction of fighter command became a sustained attrition battle. Neither side could withdraw. Both sides accepted losses as necessary. The outcome remained uncertain, but the tide had shifted subtly in Britain's favour. 33rd October 1940, Kent, England. Morning frost covered the ground. Temperatures dropped to near freezing overnight. The Battle of Britain officially ended this day, though combat continued sporadically. Air Ministry archives contain form of 1180 crash report cards, each one documenting wreckage locations, aircraft types, and crew fates. The cards accumulated through summer and autumn. Thousands of entries, each represented a machine and men. Sergeant Ray Holmes, who famously rammed a German bomber over London in September, visited a crash site in Kent years after the war. His recorded interview described the scene. Nothing left but scattered metal, a Merlin engine block half buried, machine gun casings rusted in the soil. I stood there quietly, remembered. Final loss accounting required months. Official RAF statistics listed 1,744 aircraft lost between 10th of July and 31st October. Luftwaffe losses totaled approximately 1,977 aircraft in the same period. The numbers were nearly equal, but strategic outcomes differed dramatically. Britain retained air defence capability. Germany failed to achieve air superiority. The invasion was postponed indefinitely. Hugh Dowding was relieved of fighter command on 25 November. The decision reflected internal RAF politics more than operational performance. His defensive system had succeeded, but critics favoured more aggressive tactics. Dowding's departure was quiet. He accepted reassignment without public comment. His private papers, donated to archives after his death, included a handwritten note dated November 1940. We did what was required. They expected collapse. We endured. Aircraft production statistics for the battle period showed sustained British output. Castle Bromwich delivered over 300 Spitfires between July and October. Total British fighter production exceeded 1,100 aircraft in the same period. German fighter production was higher numerically, but distributed across multiple fronts. Britain's concentrated focus on homeland defence proved decisive. Hans-Joachim Marseille, later famous as a North Africa ace, was redeployed from the Channel Front in late October. His combat reports from the Battle of Britain noted the intensity of defensive fire and the skill of British pilots. He wrote, "They do not give ground easily. Every engagement is fought to conclusion." Wreckage recovery teams worked through autumn and into winter. Crashed aircraft were salvaged for intelligence analysis and metal reclamation. British teams examined German equipment and tactics. Luftwaffe armament specialists studied British fighter guns and tactics. Both sides learned, adapted, and applied lessons to future operations. The human cost extended beyond aircrew casualties. Civilian deaths from bombing reached thousands by October's end. London endured nightly raids. Provincial cities suffered attacks. Air raid shelters became routine. Blackout regulations governed civilian life. The war came home in ways the military statistics did not capture. RAF pilot survivors carried physical and psychological scars. Burn injuries were common among those shot down. Facial reconstruction surgery at East Grinstead Hospital treated severe cases. Surgeon Archibald Mackindo pioneered techniques still used today. His patients, dubbed the Guinea Pig Club, supported each other through recovery. German aircrew survivors faced similar struggles. Downed pilots captured in Britain became prisoners of war. Interrogation reports from the RAF intelligence branch documented their experiences, morale, and perspectives. Many expressed surprise at British resilience and industrial capacity. The intelligence gap persisted even among those who witnessed the battle firsthand. Strategic assessments written in late 1940 acknowledged the battle's significance. Air Chief Marshal Sir Charles Portal, who succeeded Dowding, wrote in December, "The German Air Force attempted to destroy Fighter Command and failed. This failure shaped all subsequent operations. Air superiority remained contested. Invasion became impossible. Weather through October turned progressively worse. Rain, fog, and low cloud reduced sortie counts. Both sides used the respite to rebuild strength. German strategy shifted toward night bombing campaigns against cities. Fighter Command adapted to night defense requirements while maintaining daylight readiness." The final operational summary for 31st October recorded 8 RAF sorties and 3 inconclusive contacts. No losses on either side. The anticlimactic end contrasted with the furious combat of August and September. The battle faded into sustained strategic bombing campaigns that would last years. Elsie Crozier continued working at Castle Bromwich through 1941 and beyond. Her factory produced Spitfires for North Africa, Malta, and eventually the Second Front. She never met the pilots who flew aircraft she helped build. The connection remained abstract but meaningful. In archived documents, the narrative ends with numbers: sorties flown, aircraft lost, pilots killed or wounded. But beneath the statistics lay individual stories, remembered in letters, diaries, and interviews. The sky above Britain had been contested and held. The record closed. Memory remained.